I received 3 letters with incredible, but true stories. At first glance, they had nothing in common: different cities, different people, different lives. But each one started the same, with someone who seemed completely ordinary, and ended with an encounter you would not want to experience. From a friendly neighbor with a chilling smile, to a childhood friend who would not let go, and a guest who turned the night into something sinister, these stories still haunt those who lived through them. I will read them to you. The boy at the end of the street. When my parents divorced, my mom had to move fast. She found a small rental house on the other side of town, far enough from my school that we had to make special arrangements. My brothers chose to live with my dad, but I went with Mom. My cousin Mason, who had been staying with us for years, moved in too. The problem was transportation. Mom's place wasn't in the school district. Every morning she'd drive Mason and me to class, and every afternoon we'd take the bus back to Dad's house and wait there until she finished work. Dad's neighborhood was lively. A handful of kids around our age roamed the cul-de-sacs, riding bikes, building rickety forts, and exploring the patch of woods at the very end of the street we called the Hollow. It was our unspoken clubhouse, an overgrown trail leading to a muddy pond surrounded by tangled trees. Then a new family moved in 2 houses down from Dad's. They had a son named Ethan, pale skin, shaggy brown hair, wiry build. He looked like any other kid, maybe a little quiet. We first met him on the bus. Everyone's curious about a new neighbor, so we struck up a conversation. He smiled, cracked a few jokes, and by the time we reached school, it felt like he'd always been part of the group. At first, there were no red flags. He tagged along to the Hollow, joined our Nerf wars, even helped fix up a half-collapsed treehouse. But within a few weeks, whispers started. Ethan had been expelled from our school the year before for throwing a desk at a teacher. Somehow, I brushed it off as a stupid stunt. I shouldn't have. One afternoon, after Mason and I left for my mom's, Ethan invited a few of the neighborhood kids over. According to them, the hangout ended with Ethan chasing our friend Jake all the way home, with a machete. Jake's mom ran outside when she heard him screaming, only for Ethan to turn and charge at both of them before bolting away, grinning like it was the funniest thing in the world. The police came. Ethan disappeared from school for a few days. When he returned, he acted like nothing had happened. The others started avoiding him, especially Jake. But me? I felt bad for him. I told myself it was just a dumb prank gone too far. A week later, sitting on the bus, he suddenly pulled a pencil from his pocket and jabbed it into my neck. The tip barely broke skin, but the shock left me frozen. He laughed, muttering, "Relax, it's a joke." I reported it to the driver. That's when his attitude changed. He was kicked off the bus for a couple of days, and when he came back, they made him sit in the front. Every time I walked past, he stared at me with this cold, fixed glare. One Saturday, weeks later, Ethan messaged me. He said he wanted to hang out, maybe build something down at the Hollow. He even mentioned Mason, trying to make it seem like a group thing. Against my better judgment, we agreed. We knocked on his door. He opened it holding a kitchen knife with an orange handle. His eyes lit up, and without a word, he slowly pressed the blade against his own forearm, drawing thin red lines. Then he smiled and said, "Let's go." My gut screamed to leave, but we followed him into the woods. I clung to the hope other kids would already be there. But when we reached the trailhead, it was empty. "They're just late," Ethan said casually. "We can get started." He told me to gather sticks near the pond while Mason stayed with him. I walked a few yards, the cold air damp against my skin, when the hair on my neck stood up. I turned. Ethan was creeping toward Mason, holding a garden hoe raised high, his smile widening. "Hey!" I yelled. My voice cracked in panic. Mason spun around. Ethan lowered the hoe instantly, forcing a laugh. "My mom just texted." I lied. "We've gotta go." We turned and walked fast. That's when Ethan's footsteps quickened, then broke into a run. We sprinted, branches snapping under our feet, breath ragged in the cold. The steep hill to the exit loomed ahead, and we scrambled up it, dirt crumbling under our shoes. I risked a glance back. Ethan was halfway up, his face twisted into something I can only describe as hungry. We reached the street and didn't stop until we were halfway home. When we looked back, the trail was empty. We never saw him again. Within days, Ethan vanished from the neighborhood. His house went quiet. The blinds stayed closed. A month later, the family was gone. No forwarding address. No goodbye. Years later, I tried looking him up. No social media, no records, nothing. Like he never existed. But I know he did. And somewhere out there, that boy with the smile and the knife is still breathing. And I pray our paths never cross again. The Girl Who Wouldn't Let Go. I grew up on the south side of Harbor Ridge, a windy coastal town where the salt in the air made everything feel older than it was. From ages 9 to 11, my world revolved around a girl I'll call Jenna. We lived a block apart, and for a while she felt like the only person who saw me. I was the kid with hand-me-down shoes and a house I was embarrassed to invite anyone into. Jenna lived in a small bungalow with her mom, who worked weekends. Sleepovers happened there, never at mine. The first time I stayed over, Jenna showed me the secret grown-up DVDs she found in her mom's closet. I didn't understand much. I just knew it made my skin crawl. She asked questions I didn't have language for, if I ever felt things, if I wanted to try stuff. When I hesitated, she'd switch tone like flipping a light, sing Sanji baby voice, pressing a cold plastic toy into my hand and giggling. I told myself it was just weird kid behavior. We were 9. I wanted to keep a friend. Jenna liked scary games. In the dark, she'd whisper made-up stories about her dolls being alive and angry at me for stealing her attention. She'd lean close to my ear and chant, "Patty cake," in a nursery voice until I couldn't sleep. It unsettled me, but I thought the problem was me. My nerves, my upbringing, my neediness. When you're a lonely kid, you learn to normalize the things that keep you included. The spring I turned 10, a neighbor's dog tore into me. It was fast and brutal. I needed reconstructive stitches around my mouth and cheek. Afterward, I had daily medication and check-ins at the school office. Maddie, another classmate, walked me there and back. We got close. I started staying at Maddie's house instead of Jenna's. That shift detonated something in Jenna. She started telling anyone who'd listen that she was pregnant. 10 years old, solemn as a news anchor, with plans and appointments. It lasted weeks. People felt sorry for her, then skeptical, and finally she let it drop, only to announce she had cancer. She didn't. I knew too many details from my aunt's actual diagnosis. And when I gently called her out, Jenna's face went flat and hard, like I'd spoiled her favorite game. Then came the thefts. After a sleepover at Maddie's, my first pink flip phone disappeared. So did my cherished DS Lite. My mom, who'd saved for months to get me those, was furious and demanded we retrace steps. Maddie later claimed she found both smashed in the road, and handed me the broken shells. I couldn't prove anything. I was 12 and very tired. Jenna's need to control attention kept mutating. On Maddie's birthday at the community pool, I tried to stay in the shallow end. I couldn't swim, still can't. Jenna swam over, all friendliness and big eyes, and offered me a piggyback so I could join the others in the deep end. My chest filled with relief. Finally, a normal moment. I climbed on and wrapped my arms around her shoulders. Halfway across, her body started to tilt. A little, then more. "Stop," I said, panic rising. "Jenna, stop." She laughed, rolled sharply, and dumped me. My head went under. Chlorine burned my eyes, water punched my nose and mouth. I flailed, No bottom, no breath, just noise. A lifeguard's whistle split the air. Hands grabbed me and dragged me to the edge. I coughed until my ribs hurt. Through the blur I saw Jenna on the tiled lip, smiling like she'd pulled a prank. Later she told me I was being a baby and should learn or drown. After that I avoided her. Our two mutual friends ping-ponged between us, but I kept my distance. I thought time would do the work of separation, and for a while it did. Then, on a gray fall afternoon, she blocked the sidewalk outside Sutton's corner store, school tie wrapped like a headband, eyes rimmed red. I stepped to the side. She lunged, nails in my neck, knees slamming my thigh, elbows thudding into my ribs. I didn't fight so much as survive, scrambling and, in a blind instinct, yanking the tie hard enough to topple her. She hit the pavement and bolted, crying. I walked home shaking and confused, replaying every second for the reason. There wasn't one that made sense. 2 months later, the morning after my 12th birthday, Evelyn rushed up to me before homeroom. Jenna brought a knife, she whispered. She told me it's for you. I laughed because the alternative was terror. But administrators pulled Jenna from class minutes later, and police officers came through the front office. I never saw the knife. I didn't have to. She was expelled on the spot. You'd think that would end it. It didn't. Jenna transferred to a different school across town, the same one my younger sister, Anna, started that year. At orientation, Jenna told Anna the knife had been a joke, and that it was meant for your sister. My sister, who has never tolerated threats against family, responded with her fist. That skirmish was the last direct contact for a while. Years passed. I learned routes that didn't intersect with Jenna's. I graduated middle school, then started high school. The world got bigger and kinder. At 18, I went off to university and thought the tide had finally washed that chapter out to sea. Then, out of nowhere, she tagged me, just me, in an old class photo on Facebook. No message, no other names, just my face blinking out from second grade. A few weeks later she sent me a private invite to her birthday party. I didn't respond. It was like watching a hook drop into water and staying very, very still. Later I heard she and Maddie had reconnected, suddenly inseparable again. That revelation pinballed other suspicions into place. Who had actually taken my DS and phone back then? Who had found them smashed? Who needed me punished for choosing different friends? There's a particular dread that comes from realizing your worst memories may have been orchestrated by someone who called you best friend. I saw Jenna once more, when I was 19. I was walking downtown after a movie with my boyfriend. She stood at the bus stop in a winter coat, hair tucked into a beanie. Our eyes met. Her mouth opened into a grin I recognized from the pool deck. She lifted her phone and began recording me, arms steady, tracking my steps until I turned the corner and disappeared. Sometimes I tell myself I survived a small, personal storm and that's all it was. Other times I replay the near misses, the lifeguard's whistle, the administrator who listened, the way my sister refuses to be afraid. I think about how easily a different moment could have changed everything. I don't know where Jenna is now. I don't search. Maybe she grew up and softened. Maybe the need to orchestrate faded. Or maybe she just learned new games. What I do know is that a child can carry the shape of danger into adulthood, and that recognition is a kind of safety. When I walk past a pool, I still smell chlorine and feel my throat tighten. When a stranger on a sidewalk won't step aside, my skin remembers. People love to say childhood drama is just kids being kids. In Harbor Ridge, I learned that sometimes it's a rehearsal. And sometimes, if you're lucky, the curtain drops before the play becomes real. The houseguest who watched the hallway. We were halfway through a 12-hour drive when my mom announced a detour. "We'll grab dinner in Silver Glen," she said, a postcard mountain town with stained glass galleries and prayer flag balconies, the kind of place that pretends winter is a lifestyle. We pulled into a narrow street strung with fairy lights and parked outside a tiny Nepali restaurant that smelled like cardamom and wood smoke. "She'll meet us here," Mom added, checking her phone. Corinne. We knew each other in college. Reconnected online. Corinne walked in like she was following a compass only she could see, tall, willow-thin, hair a frizzed auburn cloud with bone-white streaks. Feathers and brass coins dangled from her earrings. Her eyes were a pale, rinse blue that made me think of old glass. She hugged my mom a beat too long, shook my older brother's hand, then turned to me. For a moment her face emptied out, mouth open like she'd forgotten what expressions were. Then, click, she smiled too wide, bent down, and pulled me into a hug that smelled like incense and wintergreen. At the curb afterward, my mom said too casually, Corinne's going to stay with us for a bit, help with the move. She said it like someone asking to borrow a library book. Corinne slipped into her dusty Subaru and followed our U-Haul through switchbacks and black pines to our new rental, a boxy beige with a narrow deck, 2 small bedrooms, 1 bath. We unloaded just enough to sleep. My brother called the bottom bunk, I took the top. Mom kissed our foreheads and shut the door. By the time I drifted off, it was after 11. I woke to light cutting through the blinds, the deck lamp had clicked on. Curiosity pulled me to the window. Cross-legged on the deck, Corinne sat facing the trees, a cigarette burning down between her fingers, hair haloed by the bulb. I lay back, telling myself it was nothing, and had almost slipped under again when the rectangle of light on the far wall darkened. Someone stood outside our window. The silhouette didn't move for a long breath. Then the front door opened and clicked shut. The deck light snapped off. I rolled to face the wall. The bedroom door eased open with the sound of a breath held and released. Not Mom. The air carried lavender and something sweet medicinal. The mattress dipped near my head. Fingers, cool, slow, combed the back of my hair in little scoops, the nails drawing light scratches across my scalp. Oil slicked my neck. She pinched the cord of muscle at the base of my skull, held it, let it go. Again. Again. I wanted to speak, but instinct decided stillness was safer. Somewhere in the middle of the rhythm, I fell asleep. Morning brought cereal. Corinne waited at the table, bright and chipper, tapping a spoon against the bowl. She'd put chocolate chips in mine, not my brother's. I massage your neck, she chirped, so you don't wet the bed. New rooms make young ones leak. She winked. I said carefully, I don't do that, and thanked her anyway. The oil still clung to my hairline. We slipped into a routine. Mom worked late. Corinne and Mom drank wine and laughed in the kitchen. My brother and I retreated early. I learned to time my night trips to the bathroom. Quiet footfalls, door latch lifted instead of turned, a sprint across the cold hallway tiles. The first few nights were simple. Then, like she'd heard my plan inside my head, Corinne synchronized herself to me. If I touched the doorknob, her door opened. If the floor gave the faintest creak, she materialized, padding fast, always a second ahead, always reaching the bathroom first. Sometimes she left the door cracked, the light off, the sound of her breathing huge in the dark. I'd stand in the hallway pretending to be a coat rack until she drifted back to her room. It happened so often that I started using the back mudroom door and slipping outside to pee in the shadow of the garbage cans, winter air burning my shins. One night I miscalculated. Midnight, or later. My hand hadn't fully closed on the knob when her door exploded outward. Corinne barreled into the hall completely naked, moving faster than seemed possible for someone that thin, pale skin lit blue by the window. I flattened behind my mom's hulking jade plant, knees to chest, breath trapped in my mouth. Corinne swept past, a cold wind in her wake, and disappeared into the bathroom. She stayed there a long time, light off, door ajar the width of a palm. When she finally came out, she paced the hallway barefoot, back and forth, like she was measuring it with her steps. I didn't move until her door clicked shut. During the day, she turned bright and helpful. She baked spelt muffins nobody liked and stuck crystals in corners. To tune the house. She taught me to steep chamomile. Until it goes cloudy. She asked endless questions about my sleep. Did you dream of water? She'd ask, eyes intent. Of doors? If Mom was around, Corinne was jokes and errands and kindness. If Mom left for the store, the air tilted. A few weeks in, my brother and I were sword fighting with sticks out back. I swung too close and clipped my forehead. Blood came fast. Corinne was there the way a storm is there, sudden, total. She didn't scold me. She kicked my brother in the side of the head with the heel of her boot. He toppled into the dirt, cursing, eyes wet with angry tears. Corinne gathered me up and rocked me, her body vibrating like a plucked string. "Are you hurt? Are you hurt? Are you hurt?" she whispered, the words colliding. Mom got the story in crumbs and gusts. My brother didn't embellish. He didn't need to. The mark on his temple colored like a storm cloud. Mom's mouth thinned into a line I recognized from doctors' offices and bill disputes. That night, after the dishes, she asked Corinne to pack her things. On her last morning, Corinne waited for me in the driveway. The mountains behind her looked like folded paper. She knelt, grasped my shoulders with cold hands, and said very softly, "I hope I meet you in another life. You remind me so much of my husband." Tears leapt to her eyes. She hugged me and sobbed into my jacket. I stood there, stiff as a fence post. Inside, I asked who he was. Mom rubbed her forehead. "He was a Marine," she said. "He died overseas last year." "Corinne told me that you're quiet." She stopped. She said you reminded her? I never told my mom about the midnight massages, or the oil pressed into my neck, or the way Corinne's breathing filled the bathroom in the dark. I didn't tell her about the naked sprint, the hallway pacing, the way the deck light would flick on and I'd find Corinne's silhouette paused at our window like she was waiting for a signal. Corinne left, and telling would have meant bringing her back into the room, even as a story. Sometimes I think about the small economies of fear children learn, how quiet can erase you, how stillness can make you safe, how you can map a floorboard's groan with your bare feet. I can still find the soft places in that hallway where the oak didn't complain. I can still smell lavender when I'm not expecting it, and feel my shoulders pull toward my ears. I don't know where Corinne went after Silver Glen. She deleted her social media or I forgot the right spelling of her last name. Maybe she teaches yoga in a warmer town now, or lives off-grid with goats and a satellite dish. Maybe she's fine. Maybe the world made room for her ways. Every once in a while, a deck light flips on across the street, and I think of that first night, the cigarette ember floating above a cross-legged shadow, the long pause at the glass. I remind myself that doors latch. I remind myself that I am not 7 anymore, that my hair is my own, that the space between my bed and the wall belongs to me. And still, if I wake at midnight and need the bathroom, I listen first, just in case someone else has learned my timing. Let me know what you think in the comments. This was Tell Me What Happened. I'll see you in the next story.